Welcome back into the Midtown Madness podcast with Peter Hale and Zach Miller. I'm Zach Miller. I'm joined with Peter Hale. We're going to get to some Billiken basketball talk. Finally, we haven't gotten to it in a while, but first we're going to kick it over to our guest, Bill McDermott, Mr. Soccer St. Louis. He joined us to review the women's NCAA tournament game and then talk a little bit of men's soccer. And we got a little St. Louis soccer scene talk in there too. So it's really fun. Really good to hear from him. I'm going to kick it over right now. All right, so we are excited to bring on Mr. Soccer St. Louis. He is the voice when it comes to St. Louis soccer. He does PA for the men's and women's Billiken soccer team, and maybe the best dude to hang out with in a press box I've ever met. Bill McDermott, welcome to the Midtown Madness podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, Zach. How you doing? Peter, how you been?
Good, Bill.
Yeah,
how about
you?
Zach, what era was that when you were sitting next to me in the press box?
That was the Cristo.
Oh, yes.
Adnan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, some of the references were very were Dennis Miller-esque. References from every reference in that press box was going over everybody's head. You and me together, it was just nobody had any clue what the heck we were talking about.
Well, and now it still continues, Zach. The only guy who gets the references somewhat is Mickey Smith, the sports information director for the women's soccer team. He gets some of them, but the interns who are in the situation like you were have absolutely just no feel whatsoever.
Well, I have to shout out my good friend Emily Lansford, who ran the clock on many games where you and I were riffing back and forth.
Oh, sure.
She would get a kick out of me reminding you of her sitting there just like, what are these two idiots talking about? But how much did you enjoy watching the women this season?
I really enjoyed their style of play. Let's just put it that way from the very outset. Katie has done a wonderful job getting good players to stay in town and to come to St. Louis University. I think, this year's squad had 27 players, 17 of which are from this immediate area and nearby Illinois, which is a very difficult task to accomplish. But she has done so convincingly, and they go on to win the A10 tournament and the regular season 3 years consecutively for both. And that's next to impossible, irrespective of your competition. So she has done a wonderful job and will continue to do just that because she has an extremely, extremely youthful team.
What is it about the style of play exactly? Can you kind of explain that for our audience who are kind of more basketball centric? But
they try to keep the ball. They try to play out of the back. They got away from that a little bit in the game on Friday, Zach, and therein lie the problem. Now, the whole scenario changed because one absolute key important player, Hannah Larson, was not playing. So the first thing I noticed when I turned on the stream, because it's an NCAA game, all players from the respective teams, Washington and SLU, are out on the field. The first thing I noticed is Hannah Larson on crutches. What? Mm-hmm. She got hurt earlier in the week during training. I don't know the severity of her injury, but she was limping substantially and couldn't put a lot of weight on it. And first of all, needed crutches. So consequently, it's an injury of some substance. But when she is not in the game, you play dramatically different. She was a substantial part of the success this year of this team because she brings an absolute lost ingredient to the game, a lost art, and that is running at defenders at top speed. She's very good with the ball at her feet. She will run at defenders. She's calm, composed in the penalty area. She works well alongside Hannah Frederick and Emily Grorick, and she's just a different type of player. She has some of Maddie Picorni in her, and you remember Maddie because she ran at defenders too. I'm not just saying that for St. Louis U's team, but if you look at teams literally around the world, there are not that many players who run at people continuing and take people on from anywhere on the field. And that's exactly what Hannah Larson does and did this year on a regular basis, and was sorely missed on Friday.
So in addition to Larson being out, what else do you think went against SLU in that game?
I think there were too many long balls flighted out of the backfield, Peter, which automatically forces you to defend all the time. Because when Washington got back, they got back in two blocks, the midfielders and the defenders. And when you send long balls forward in the air, no less, if you put them on the ground, somebody can maybe get on the end of them. When they're continually long out of your own backfield or midfield, looking for a run of a forward, and they're in the air, they're so easy to cut out. And St. Louis U did that a little bit too much, I thought, on Friday. But it happened because they didn't have Hannah Larson at the width to play a ball to on the ground so she could run at people. And usually when you send balls continually forward like that, they're going to come right back at you.
You know, one of the matchups I first of all, I never want to hear the names Kayleen Pang and Amira Hussein ever again. They were a thorn in the side, but I really enjoyed watching Amira Hussein and Carson Cole go at it. Were you keyed in on that matchup as
Very
well?
much so. Carson's a battler in a central part of the field. But what she does, most importantly, I think, Zach, is that as quickly as she cuts the ball out, she will try to play it that quickly. She sees the pass, plays the pass. And that's what that type of a player in the middle of the field is supposed to do. A defensive midfielder, if you will, playing a little bit deeper, get it, cut it out, and get the ball forward as quickly as possible and make that correct decision in that central part of the field, which is so vital. And as you've seen watching her play this year, she will never hide in a physical game. She's got just enough bite into her tackle in the central part of the field, which is also a key at that position.
Hannah Larson's replacement, whose name escapes me, and I apologize because I'm in the car and I have no notes with me. Well, how did you think she fared Friday night? Can you remind me of her name? I'm losing it right now. Sorry to our listeners.
That's all right. But she's a freshman and played very little in the last 6 or 7 months, simply because of injuries, Zach. But when she came on latter part of this year, the ball found her in the penalty area. She really did well.
Yeah. What was her name? What's her name again? Peter, do you have it?
Is it Jess Presser?
No, Jess Presser. No.
Caroline
Kelly.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Caroline Kelly. I didn't want to get it wrong.
Excuse me, I'm daydreaming. But yes, she did really well, though. Again, as a freshman. Well, when you say these players are freshmen, they are in age only and you're in school only. They play at a very high level in select ball and club ball, so that when they get to college these days, it's not that immense of a jump. And I think Katie will tell you also, with the team starting late this year, not playing in the fall of last year, that really helped a goodly number of the freshmen, for that matter, sophomores on the team as well, who are so young, just getting acclimated to the overall college scene, where you're not here just to play soccer, obviously, but you have to go to school in the process. So doing both as a freshman, as a young woman, is a difficult assignment. So perhaps not starting until this spring really paid dividends for the team.
Who do you think gets the game ball, so to speak, Friday night? I know the Billikens, unfortunately, were on the wrong end of the result, penalty kicks. But for the Billikens, who do you think gets the game ball?
I think consistently with a little bit of the offensive pressure that Washington did indeed apply. Emily Percelli, again, another freshman, she was equal to everything in the penalty area. She cuts out crosses superbly, I think. Very good with her hands, good, safe, secure, distributes the ball nicely, gets the ball well over midfield every time she touches it with distribution, and seems very confident, and is very confident on her goal line, again, because of the high level of training and competition she has played at before coming to St. Louis University.
One of the interesting things I thought about the flow of the game was that The Billikens were on the front foot early, but as we got longer into the game, late in the regulation, Washington seemed to kind of take control. But what I felt was so criminal to send that game to PKs was that for the last about 5 minutes of the second period of extra time, the Billikens looked like they were smelling blood in the water.
For sure. They had plenty of opportunities. They were much more into their offense because they kept the ball, and they kept the ball on the ground. They found people in dangerous positions. Hannah Frederick hits the face of the crossbar. She got more involved in the flow of the attack. But after a while, Zach, and I believe me, I know what you mean about penalty kicks. But with reference to penalty kicks in this sport, there's other ways to perhaps control the outcome of a game. But the most efficient and probably the most logical way, unfortunately, is going to be penalty kicks. You can take people off the field. You could do various things with substitutions. My solution, I don't think, irrespective of college soccer, let's put that aside just for a second. I don't think that a World Cup final should ever be decided on penalty kicks, at least not on the first day. Let's have a replay 3-4 days later if you're going into overtime, because this is the World Cup final. You get it to penalty kicks, which, yes, is a part of the game, but it's so dramatically different, keeping with the flow of the overall sport when you get to an important time of the game. In World Cup soccer, a real simple solution. Can't do this in college because seemingly they use 27 or 50 people a game with the people that run in and out of the game all the time. But in World Cup soccer, I think you just allow it after 2 overtimes, you allow free substitution. You bring 23 people to the World Cup, let all 23 of them dress, and do not allow a World Cup final to be decided by penalty kicks. Free substitution.
Yeah, I don't know if I had a problem with it. Wasn't so much that I had a problem with ending that game in penalty kicks. It was that, you see professional soccer play 15 each, 15 to 15 minutes. So, I think if the Billikens had 10 extra minutes, I feel like they might have come out with the win. Obviously, they didn't move on. They didn't get to see how to test their mettle against North Carolina on Wednesday, which a team I thought looked very, very not pedestrian, but not invincible.
It's certainly not the Mia Hamm days for the University of North Carolina, but the parity in intercollegiate soccer, women's in particular, has shifted a great deal. And Anson Dorrance always talks about this. It's not so much in the cradle of North Carolina any longer, but pretty much out on the West Coast in California, where there is an absolute hotbed just about every part of the state. And that comes forward in men's and women's intercollegiate soccer.
You mentioned that the West Coast, and I think Washington had one player east of the Colorado River on their roster. And Katie Shields gets most of her talent out of St. Louis and some from elsewhere. Do you think Katie will shift a little more after, we've got this transcendent class that, as she calls it. Do you think she'll shift to a more national and international recruiting? Or do you think she's found her niche?
The latter part of your conversation, your question, I think, Zach. I think she's more at home, more comfortable with that. Now, that doesn't discount the fact that she can look for players anywhere and will take a player of consequence from absolutely anywhere. But I think the majority of her recruiting is going to take place locally. I believe that to be the case. It certainly has been so far. We just talked about that a moment ago, but I think that's going to continue to be the case.
What can you tell us about what the roster looks like next season in terms of any potential turnover or the incoming class? Again,
very, very young, Peter. You have the players we've been talking about already. Emily Percelli's a freshman. Hannah Larson's a freshman. Abby Miller, the midfielder of the year, who really took up the torch in so many different ways for different people who graduated. She stepped right in that first 11 and made her presence felt, not just offensively, contributing to the attack, scoring goals, very good on set pieces and restarts, but playing a little bit deeper, sometimes right alongside of Carson Cole. Yes, the team does miss Anna Lawler, and I think she'll be, in answer to your question, Peter, she'll be back next year, as will the majority of this team, simply because it is so young. Even Brianna Halverson is going to be back as well. Remember, she was redshirted 1 year because of an ACL injury, so she'll be back as well. And I don't know about you, but playing against Halverson for 90 minutes, that has to be absolute misery. She is non-stop running from corner flag to corner flag, and then when called upon to do so, gets involved in the offense and can move up top, and is non-stop working, continual energy. And she just has, like Abby Miller and Carson Cole and people like that in the central part of the field, they have, it seems to be, infallible GPS systems for the ball. They're always around the ball.
With obviously this team being so young and so good at a young state, what do you think the ceiling is for this class by the time they graduate? I personally believe they will make a deep run in this NCAA tournament before Piriselli leaves St. Louis.
Well, to follow up on that, Zach, I think Katie Shields put it best. Now that we have all this recognition and this pedigree in the A-10, it is now time to go start winning games in the NCAA. I thought that was going to be the case on Friday, but right now, as of right now, they have not accomplished that. So that is, without any question whatsoever, your goal. To get into the tournament, obviously, but to start winning games and to get in the round of 16 to quarters. Somewhere along the line, you have to get into the NCAA tournament and win games in that tournament. That determines your pedigree as a soccer program, without any question.
We have a little extra time than I thought. I wanted to kind of get your take while we have you on the future of the men's side. We talk a lot about the women because the women are just having outstanding success in the last 3 seasons. The men's team is still in a bit of a transition period with Kevin Kalish taking over. But they had a disappointing end of the season against Fordham in the A-10 tournament. What is their outlook going forward?
Their outlook is real simple, Zach. To get back into the winning tradition that used to take place at St. Louis University on a regular basis. You are not going to win the NCAA tournament every time you field a team like St. Louis U did in the late 50s, early 60s, and with the halcyon era of the early 70s, that 1970 class that was in four NCAA finals, winning 3 of them. The only one they didn't win was no longer contested on the field, but would have been awarded to St. Louis University because Howard used ineligible players. But Kevin Kalish knows this full well. To get back into the NCAA tournament, so the name St. Louis University can get more relevance back to the men's program. One of the main reasons that the success of men's intercollegiate soccer exists today is because of what St. Louis University did when they started in 1959. So Kevin knows full well. They were dealt an absolute, unbelievable death blow, if you will, this year with Patrick Weah leaving after playing only 3 games. Because that, at the outset, I saw him play in preseason. He was a different type of player, totally different type of player than you see in the intercollegiate programs. Big man, big for his youth. Pedigree. His uncle George Weah was the first African-American player to win the Ballon d'Or, which is the player of the year in Europe. So he has some of that pedigree with him. He had the size, the speed, the ability to take people on, to run at people on a regular basis. And so that when St. Louis University showed up to play a game, the other team knew they were going to be dangerous because of Weah up top and all of the people who are capable of finding him. So you lose him. A very similar scenario to when Dan Donegan lost Vedad Ibisevic after his freshman year and going into his sophomore year. Dan hears from Vedad himself with only, 3 or 4 weeks before the start of his sophomore year. Listen, I'm not coming back. I'm going overseas to play for Paris Saint-Germain. Well, at that time, there's no farm clubs. You don't bring anybody else up. So when you lose an absolute key player like that, who is indeed a difference maker, that takes a toll on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, speaking of Weah in that situation, do you think player retention is becoming harder and harder?
Without any question whatsoever. You ask any intercollegiate soccer coach, and they would tell you it's seemingly becoming an impossible task, because the best players who figure annually in the potential of winning the MAC Hermann Trophy, the best players are always entertaining going to play at a different, higher level. That might be the USL Championship. That might be an MLS Academy. That might be getting drafted in the annual MLS Super Draft. Maybe they're going to go over to Europe, South America, someplace like that. But the players now, the players of consequence, are always looking to make themselves better. And they may think there's a different avenue, perhaps a better avenue than intercollegiate soccer. And it is difficult, yes, Peter, without any question, to hold on to real key players. Yes, for sure.
To follow up on that, do you think college soccer can make structural changes to maybe become more competitive for some of that talent? Like, I've heard proposals like maybe stretching out the schedules across both semesters and giving them more of a full year calendar to work with.
That is,
among other possible changes.
But that is, Peter, that's at the top of the list. For all intents and purposes, your season, if you do indeed get into a postseason tournament to represent your respective league, getting into the NCAA tournament, it's the last week in August until maybe again, if you get into postseason, it's maybe the first or second week in November. That clearly is not long enough.
Right.
And the former coach at University of Indiana, Jerry Yeagley, for years had said there has to be 2 parts of this season: the fall/winter, and then going back into play in the spring. So the season has to be longer. It's too contracted. It's too tight. Sometimes you're playing 2-3 games a week with the travel. That's impossible. No athlete can do that. So yes, making the season longer is at the absolute top of the list.
I enjoyed that. I don't know about you, but I enjoyed the hell out of watching the spring season. I just thought it was so nice to get out to Herman and watch it in nice weather.
Mm-hmm. That's the key. That's the key, is that nice weather. How many times in recent years past, have we seen the NCAA final, men's and women's, played perhaps at an MLS venue in the absolute dead of winter in the second week of December with, for instance, in Kansas City, where Sporting KC plays with 900 people in the stands? That's contrary to any kind of atmosphere you're trying to create for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, you go remember the last time St. Louis hosted the tournament, the Final Four. There was snow on the ground.
We were down there prior to the games, literally shoveling the field off, all hands on deck. I remember this.
They made you? They made Mr. Soccer shovel snow?
I was one of, Zach. I remember this vividly, making a call into KMOX to sports on a Sunday morning. Mike Claiborne was our host, and I said, Mike, we need as many people as we can possibly get him down to Herman Stadium. We got to start shoveling off the field. But remember that of the 2-day tournament, Zach, the first day was like 55 or 60 degrees from out of nowhere. And then the snowstorm hit the night after the first day. Yeah. That snow, by the way, that snow was extremely heavy to move off the field.
You know what? We have you here, and I would be an idiot not to ask you for give me your best St. Louis soccer story. Just, I don't know what you got, but if you got something that's funny or crazy from back in the day, give me something.
Well, I just think one of it's not a story, but more or less a memory, and that is having the opportunity to go see some of my all-time favorite, the players we idolized, play St. Louis soccer on a regular basis when there was senior soccer. Kudus, White Star, St. Ambrose, teams like that. But my most important, my key memory for the sport of soccer for me and for many people my age and from the part of the city in which we grew up, North St. Louis, in the heart of North St. Louis City, Walnut Park. We played at St. Fultonary, and there was an upper schoolyard and a lower schoolyard, upper and lower. You played in the lower schoolyard until you were deemed good enough by Don Cerisi, a former player at St. Louis University, until you were deemed good enough to come to play in the upper schoolyard. If you were further deemed good enough, then you got on the traveling team, and that is to go to the adjacent parishes, St. Engelbert, Holy Rosary, Corpus Christi. And going to Holy Rosary is where I got my first glimpse of Pat McBride. And the instant I saw him play, I said, I think we have to get a little bit better at St. Fultonary, because you saw Pat McBride and you knew in an instant how transcendent his skills were.
Bill, I can't thank you enough.
Anytime, Zach.
Some of my best memories at SLU are in the press box hanging with you.
Likewise.
I appreciate that as well. That means a ton coming from you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm allowed anymore.
Yeah, you're invited, and come back next year for my 50th year.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks, Peter.
We're gonna have to make this a regular thing. I don't know if you remember me pitching you our own podcast that we needed to have. Where we need to get working on that. Me and you, and we're gonna go through St. Louis soccer history and soccer history all over.
That'd be fine. We'd love to do it anytime.
All right, Bill. Well, thank you so much, man.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bill.
My pleasure. Thanks, Peter.
I got to tell you, Peter, I enjoy every time I get to talk to Bill McDermott. It's so much fun. And we really did have just a blast making everybody clueless in the press box with references that were just so off the charts.
That doesn't surprise me, given your SLU knowledge, his SLU and soccer knowledge. It's I guess it got pretty esoteric up there.
I think I learned more about soccer just sitting there and him talking about players from this year, and then he'd talk about St. Louis and this parish and that parish. I mean, it's such he has such a wealth of knowledge. It's hard to not absorb it when you're around him.
Yeah, and it's like in addition to knowing like every nuance of the game over the years, he loves it so much, man. I mean, that's the best part. It's just how infectious that is.
Yeah, you can hear it in his voice, and I mean, you could hear excitement.
Yeah,
it's crazy. He's a true gem, and a local treasure, if you will.
There's a reason he's like still doing it, you know, like it's not like this is some huge glamorous high paying thing. I mean, like he talks about shoveling snow before an NCAA tournament game. He just loves being around it.
Yeah. 50 years. I was blown away when he said that. That's impressive. I mean, I know he's been everywhere in soccer. He has been, he was the sideline reporter at the first ever MLS game. You can find that on YouTube if you want to go check that out. Maybe we'll link it as well. But again, Bill, I cannot thank him enough for coming on and the podcast and just sharing his love and his passion for SLU soccer. So we're going to get into some basketball talk finally. I'm sure everybody, first of all, I can't believe that we hit around 170 to 200 total listens / views on our Katie Shields episode. We are basketball centric. I mean, it's fair to say that most of our listeners are basketball fans. But I don't think we had 1 ounce of basketball talk in that entire episode.
No, I think, we found a kind of different audience for that one. I don't know how sticky that'll be for some of our other stuff, but I guess that's the point, right? We kind of cover it all. And I think once kind of word, it's getting around like how much people like her and how special she is to the program. And I think that one had some good word of mouth. Like it felt like people kept passing that one around, going, "Hey, you got to hear her. You got to hear her talk to these guys."
Yeah, again, it was so much fun. There's so many people that are there, you know, there's a handful of just amazing people in that athletic department. Katie Shields, of course, Bill McDermott, Janet Oberly is phenomenal. Brian Kunderman is always down to just, he's so good with the media. And just, I love talking to those people and just, talking Billikens. So it's good when we can get on a coach. It's amazing. Billiken basketball talk. That's why you listen to us rant and rave. Well, me rant and rave and be a chucklehead, and Peter actually talk about good points. Some news came down the pipeline. Jordan Goodwin has signed with an NCAA certified agent. For those people who don't know, and I don't think I 100% know, what is an NCAA certified agent and how does that differ from, the Ari Golds of the sports world?
So, well, I don't know how much it does, but agents are agents. But the NCAA, this is kind of a rule that, for whatever reason, it kind of flew under the radar. When it first came around, I didn't really make much of it either. And it's 2 years ago. Basically, the NCAA implemented a rule that it allows players to declare for the draft, sign with an agent, but still maintain their eligibility as long as the agent is on a pre-approved list from the NCAA. So this is like traditionally the NCAA, it was like if you signed with an agent, that was it. You're not eligible to play anymore. So you can talk to agents or whatever, but as soon as you sign, your eligibility is over. So the guys who wanted to come back to college could kind of test the waters, dip their toe a little bit, get some feedback, but as soon as they sign, they couldn't come back. So this kind of allows them to actually sign and return. And I don't know how it works from the agent standpoint. Like, say Jordan Goodwin signs with this agent and then decides to come back to school. Is he kind of like,
on retainer?
Yeah, like just on hold for a year or something like that. I'm not quite sure from the agency standpoint, but from the NCAA standpoint, he could still play.
Yeah, this seems like, the NCAA gets a lot of heat for, not getting with the times. And I think I understand the NCAA kind of dipping their toes. Like, I get it. You're going to have to change your business model, but it's the old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, the things will come. I mean, but the NCAA has got to figure out the way to mold it to keep their business running in a way. I mean, I get it. And it sucks that, again, that quote unquote unpaid, players are, I don't like to get into it because I don't know enough about it. But yeah, this seems like a nice way to allow guys, tweeners, I guess, in the draft that want to learn a little bit more about dealing with an agent even, and kind of, work that out as well.
Yeah, I think it's a positive move for the most part. I mean, I generally come down on the side of player empowerment. I know I've said that here before, but I don't. I think the fear was always that as soon as you sign with an agent, the money starts flowing, and the NCAA wants to retain its amateurism model. So that's the fear there, but it does put the players at a huge disadvantage to have to go, really late into the calendar year without being further down the road with an agent. So I think it's the right move, and I think there's still more to come, like you said. So I'm definitely happy for Goodwin and hope whatever he decides to do is going to be the right move for him this year.
Yeah, I think there's two things we can talk about here. We can talk, do we think Jordan Goodwin will stay in the draft, go pro, Europe, most likely? And then we could talk about what's better for the Billikens.
Those are both hard questions. I mean,
I agree. I think that 90% of Billiken fans the smart marks, if you will, if you're a wrestling fan. But we'll understand that it's somewhere in the middle. It'd be nice if we could. I mean, I love Jordan Goodwin. Let's get. He's one of my favorite Billikens of all time. But at some point, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. I mean, that you've heard this talked about. Guys like Yadier Molina with the Cardinals, or the older players on the Blues. When do you start moving away from these superstars of old and bring in the new guard?
So these are really your two questions: whether it's the right move for Slew and whether it's the right move for Goodwin, or something that we expect him to do, are kind of tied together, because it really just comes down to, you can only put 5 guys on a floor at one time, and when you look at our roster, assuming no Goodwin right now, you look across the guards and you've got Yuri Collins, who plays 30 minutes a game already as a point guard. You've got Rashad Williams coming in from Oakland, who was he led the whole NCAA in 3-point attempts this season. And I think he did the year before as well. You've got Jordan Nesbitt, who didn't really, things didn't work out for him down at Memphis, but he clearly wants to play a big role. You've got Gibson Jimerson, who was a starter for most of the season. And even though he kind of, lost it a little bit after the COVID shutdown, still, we expect him to be a big factor. You've got Fred Thatch, who was supposed to be the number 3 before his kind of unexpected illness 2 seasons ago. And then I don't think Javante Perkins came back for a 5th college year not to have the ball in his hands when it's, when you need some points. I don't know if you want to include Hargrove and Strickland in that sort of guard pool, but because those guys can play a couple positions, like a wing, maybe a small, like an undersized 4 at times. But the point is, like, we're already loaded with guards and apparently still shopping around. So if Goodwin were to return, I don't know what his expectations would be, right?
Yeah, I think where I land is, if Goodwin comes back, I don't want him holding the ball more than I would love to, and he'll never come back to do this, but play the 4, play the 3, play a deep 4, a short, a short guy, an undersized 4. Because that's where I want him. I want him anywhere near a rebound, as close to the rebounds as we can get. But that's it. That's my, otherwise, I think it's time. I mean, I think there's a new style of play we can, Jordan Goodwin wasn't that great running the break and getting out in transition. He wasn't that great. But I think we can start to move to that if, Goodwin decides to move on.
Yeah. So, he's got a lot of things to consider. Like, number one, like it's already going to be tight for minutes for a lot of guys on this roster. And, there's no way he could play the minutes he did before. He's one of our program's all-time leaders in average minutes. And he would have been in career minutes had a few seasons not been shortened for him. He actually probably would have been the all-time leader in career minutes if those didn't happen. So he would automatically, I mean, even more than roll, because I agree with you, I would want him off the ball. He would have to get used to just not playing the minutes. And if you're trying to boost your stock for a pro look, it makes me wonder, if he does return, maybe he throws his name in the portal and goes somewhere where he could be the man again, and really.
I mean, that's something that I don't think Billiken fans have even flirted with.
No, I mean, nobody's really talking about.
I've never, nobody has, like, and we're gonna get into like go pro or be a Billiken here in a minute, as when we progress on to the next topic. But I don't think Billiken fans have prepared themselves for that possibility.
It would sting. It would definitely sting more than anything else. But when you think about it, I mean, if he doesn't really see, if he doesn't really see enough of a role to showcase himself next season at SLU, and he could return if he wants. He doesn't count against the scholarship limit. But if he doesn't see just enough there for himself, it's a possibility, because the other factor is this past year, the pandemic was hard on international leagues. A lot of the international leagues, it's not the American system where you have a fixed set of teams that are just locked in, with even revenue sharing and all those kind of split. It's sort of like these owners get what they pay for, and some of these owners are not, the most reputable people. They're kind of fly by night things. So you see a lot of American players go overseas and play for 3 or 4 teams in a season, just because not every league is Australia or Germany or Spain or some of the top ones. You wind up playing in Liechtenstein or, the Ukraine, and it's just, your experience may vary widely. And so in a pandemic year, some of those teams have taken a huge hit because they need fans in the gym every night. And so it's, the options just might not be there this year. It's unlucky timing. So it's, the possibility of coming back to college, maybe somewhere other than SLU, is something people should at least get comfortable with the idea of for Goodwin, because I don't know, I think it could make sense.
I'm trying to think where he'd go. Like that, where would Goodwin go that it wouldn't bother me is what I'm asking myself. Like what would bother me and what wouldn't bother me. So obviously local, I that would bother me.
So anywhere within a 4
Yeah,
hour
like
road,
I think Pac-12, because I could just straight up ignore him.
yeah, if
I
he
think
went
it's
out
Pac-12.
if he went out to Washington State or something, I don't
Yes,
think.
I'd be okay with that. I could live with that.
Yeah. So look, I have no idea what he's going to do.
Right. No, we're just throwing.
I just don't. I would love for Goodwin to come back as like the leader who it plays a spark plug roll off the bench and practice, and is just like an unreal cheerleader and energy guy for the team, because he does all those things so well. He's such a natural leader and energy guy. Like I love that. But he can't play 35 minutes. It's just not going to happen. So it depends on what he wants and what he needs.
Yeah, I think I could see that role if he has come to the realization that the NBA is not going to be a thing ever. I think that he could come back in that role if he accepts that he's going to end up in Europe, and Europe is in a really bad way right now and could recover, and he could use that year to wait for it to recover.
Yeah, I think that's right. I just
we're just throwing shit at the wall. Like this is great. Like I've been sitting here for 20 minutes thinking that I've just been like winging it with the topics, and so I'm enjoying the hell out of it. Just like, cause I rarely get this.
Yeah. I mean, look, every, hundreds of thousands of basketball players want to play in the NBA, and it's 60 guys who are gonna hear their name called, and some will be signed at odd times throughout the year to 2-way or 10-day contracts, or any number of ways to make the league. But I know Seth Greenberg said it before, like the NBA is very, very, very hard to make. And I love Jordan Goodwin, and he's one of my all-time SLU favorites. And if I see him in another college team's jersey, it's like seeing your ex-girlfriend walking around with somebody else, like
I never handle that well.
So it would be hard, but he's definitely a guy who is not by no means, a sure thing for the NBA. I mean, that's a big, big climb. He's got some things to work on, and he knows that. I'm not saying anything to disrespect his game at all. It's just your odds are just so long, so
that's what I would do. But I mean, again, I'm a I'm a homer. I'm a fan. I'm a biased party. Like,
Yeah, yeah, of course.
that's what I would do if I was him. And I came to the idea that I wasn't going to make the NBA. I would, if the contracts aren't there, I'd come back to SLU, say, all right, I'll practice. I'll give you minutes off the bench and play off the ball and whatever we need to do to win and try to get to deep in the NCAA tournament.
It's a fun thought. And when you look at our roster too, I mean, I think the minutes that'll be there is kind of at the 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you could like a 3 or a 4.
Yep.
I think that's where you can really compete for the most minutes. Like, yeah, he's 6'3", but he also is one of the best rebounders in the country.
Right.
Exactly. And he knows everybody in the league, and he bullies these dudes. And we're solid at the 5. We're solid everywhere else. But if you can, if you're willing to kind of play a mismatch at forward, I think there's definitely some opportunity there. So that's a fun thought.
Well, we talk about Goodwin and a potential veteran presence. There's a guy out there that has just entered the transfer portal. He is a veteran in every sense of the word. I believe 1 year at SIU, 3 years at a lot of years at SIU, a year at Gonzaga, 2 years at Gonzaga, and now he's looking to transfer. Aaron Cook has entered the transfer portal. Frank Cusimano reported on his television show or radio show, that SLU has extended an offer. Pete, what do we got?
Yeah, it kind of feels like there's some smoke here, like I as soon as he hit the portal, there was just this kind of like just little buzz about like, hey, I think we're really mutually interested here. Yeah. And so he hit the portal about a week ago. I want to say like last Tuesday or something. And I don't think it was a huge surprise. Gonzaga's got a 5-star coming in to replace Suggs. Hunter Salas is his name. And then they've got a Nembhard, Andrew Nembhard, the Florida transfer, who came in after Cook last year. And I think diminished Cook's role before he really got going there to begin with. So Nembhard says he's coming back, and I think Cook looked at the roster and just didn't see more than, he played 13 and a half minutes this year and was solid, but I think he thought, he didn't really want to do that again. He's got the rare opportunity to play a 6th season. He's from St. Louis, went to Westminster Christian Academy, and then went to SIUC, where his minutes and production went up every year. But then his senior year, he got hurt his senior year. He only played 6 games, so he wound up with a red shirt. Went to Gonzaga as a grad transfer. So he has already 5 years of experience, even though he only played 6 games in his natural senior year. So he brings, wherever he's going, he brings a ton of experience.
I think Aaron Cook's been in college since Travis Ford joined the program. I think that's a legit fact. I think it was, except Travis was hired in like March. Cook started college in the fall.
Yeah, he's just collecting degrees at this point.
Yeah, I wish that was a luxury I had. I thought from the beginning there was rumblings that Cook, maybe looking out of Gonzaga, and the feeling I really got was Cook's either going to go pro or come to SLU. And if he hits the transfer portal, it's going to end up being SLU. I don't know. Just with the timeline, it was kind of like, you heard rumblings that, he might want to go pro, or is he going to take his next year? Well, he's not going to do it at Gonzaga. And just with the Cusimano reports, just that's the way it came off to me. I don't know if you saw it similarly or no.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think one thing I've noticed about his, him hitting the portal is there's not a whole lot of I'll say, like with a lot of other players coming out of big schools, you generally get a list of like, here's the schools who have reached out to Aaron Cook, and I'm really just not seeing his name connected anywhere else, just kind of combing through social media to see what I can find. and it's a lot. You'll get fans of like, whatever school, Arizona or Kansas, or like some big programs have said, hey, we should bring on a guy like this for some stability and experience and stuff like that. But you're not seeing anything like he's actually talked to the coaching staff anywhere. The one program I know that's been involved with him since he hit the portal was SLU.
Yeah.
So again, like we just talked about with Jordan Goodwin, there's not a ton of minutes to go around at guard, but a guy playing a 6th season of college basketball in his hometown for a team that should be pretty good. I definitely see it. It kind of makes sense. SLU clearly still wants a combo guard too. Even after Nesbitt and Williams, they were still talking to some other guards. So I think he kind of fits, what they see as a need.
What's the scholarship situation? Speaking of all these players at all the same position.
Yeah, so we've got 12 scholarships accounted for now. In a normal season, you would have a limit of 13, so we would have one to give, and Cook would therefore be the final one, should he accept. This season, we technically right now have 13 because Perkins does not count against the limit. So you bring on another player, and we're at 13 plus one, basically.
Right.
I think is how it is.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Are there any other names right now that would be tied to SLU recruiting wise for the next year, or is it kind of is everything looking towards 22?
Yeah, so this season, not that I've seen. I mean, look, we've had some, I'm always watching like Twitter, and we've had some assistant coaches follow a couple JUCO players and high school players who are 2021s, but they kind of look like backup plans to me at this point. Based on what Cook's going to do, because they're guards, and if Cook takes the scholarship, I can't imagine we would try and make a play for another guard. So yeah, I mean, like I think if you were say like a stretch 4, I always get hung up on a stretch 4.
Stretch 4. I want a stretch 4.
It feels like a luxury that we've just never had.
Yeah.
But and I could see that fitting into this roster, but no, I think it's kind of been a slow trickle for us at this point, and Cook, there's definitely some smoke on that one.
Well, all right. I think did we forget anything? I'm easily distracted.
I don't think so.
Anything big come down the wire?
Not lately. No, it's been a slow trickle. I mean, if you're looking at this roster, what do you do right now?
Stretch 4.
Stretch 4 is it?
Yeah, well, that's always.
There's still, you still got the chance that Lawrence Son's role increases this season.
That'll be interesting. I'm very interested. We haven't had a. I know Linson is an international recruit from Germany, but it feels like we haven't done well with international players since. I mean, am I wrong to say Grandy was the last productive international player that got decent minutes?
Well, I mean, it's a part of the question there.
He is Canadian.
Yeah, do you want
Canadian.
to call a Canadian player?
That's true. I really stretched that one, didn't I?
An international player.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a couple seasons ago we had Ingve show up and kind of he didn't stay around long. Maybe it was him.
Yeah, because I mean you had not, oh gosh, Neufeld, thank you.
Yeah, he didn't stick around.
No.
And he was also Canadian, and then Madani Jada. Yeah, he didn't really play much. So I think you'd probably do. You definitely get into the Cruz years.
Yeah. Or even, I mean, to really get into it, I mean, Rob Lowe and Cody Ellis were really the,
Yeah, if we're not including Canadians, but I think if just any international player, it would be
wild.
It would be those two before Grandy. But
I think Martin Linson will be will be very impactful this year. I'm excited to see where he fits in. He's a guy we get so focused on these new players that are coming in that, we forget about a guy who like Linson, who had a little bit of a shaky start, looked a little behind, and then found his groove and found his niche with the team.
Yeah, I mean, he gave us exactly what I would have wanted out of him this season. He was never a huge rebounder, but just to kind of get in, play some hard defense. He definitely needs to work on staying out of foul trouble, but to give us some good
quick with the ball,
efficient offense. Yeah,
like soon as he got the ball, it was something was happening.
He's got a ton of post moves, and he's efficient, and he draws fouls, gets so free and hits free throws. I mean, like that's something we definitely needed out of a big man. So I'm really excited with him, and you've got Bell back, and you've got Okoro, so we're more than solid at the post.
Yeah, I really hope for Bell to get a full preseason in him. He really missed out this past season with that, and I can't imagine the more isolation that was leading up couldn't have been good for, especially him being a guy who just went through a big transformation physically, and then no longer being able to go to the gym. So that's a huge change, but I think that's going to do it for us for this episode. Again, we're working on interviews. It's you got to track down these guys are successful in everything they do. I mean, anybody who plays Division I college basketball kind of has that ethic to go farther in whatever they do. So we're dealing with a lot of busy guys and trying to wrangle them in, and we're working on it. I'm working on a big project. Hopefully I'll have more on that soon as well. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, at Midtown Mad Pod. Peter is a tweeter, and Zach Miller, MMP. Pete, anything before we get out of here?
No, we'll have some more, recruiting stuff coming up soon. So stay tuned. I've been pulled in a few directions lately and haven't done as much of my recruiting homework as I normally do, but we'll have plenty more of that to keep us busy during the summer.
Yeah. Thanks guys for listening, and go Bills.
Go Bills.